Good afternoon. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next 30 minutes. European Council President Antonio Costa, Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen to arrive in India today to be Republic Day chief guests, boosting India-EU strategic ties. Russia-Ukraine officials meet in Abu Dhabi with US delegation. No peace deal reached. Talks to continue. United States imposes new sanctions on Iran's shadow fleet, increasing pressure over crackdown on protesters. UN Human Rights Council adopts motion for probe. US braces for extremely dangerous winter storm. 14 states under weather emergency. Flight services affected. The President of the European Council, Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will arrive in India today. The top EU leaders will be visiting India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The leaders will be the chief guests at the 77th Republic Day celebrations. During the visit, leaders will also co-chair the 16th India-EU Summit on January 27th. During the visit, President Costa and President von der Leyen will meet President Draupadi Murmu and hold restricted and delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Modi. An India-EU Business Forum is also expected to be organized on the sidelines of the India-EU Summit. India-European Union are strategic partners since 2004. The 15th India-EU Summit was held virtually on 15 July 2020. Bilateral ties have expanded and deepened across a wide range of areas, particularly following the historic visit of EU College of Commissioners to India in February 2025. Participation of EU leaders as chief guest at the 77th Republic Day and 16th India-EU Summit will further deepen India-EU strategic partnership and advance collaboration in priority areas of mutual interest. The High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Kaja Kallas, arrived in India. The visit comes at an opportune moment to further strengthen India-EU strategic partnership, building on the momentum of regular high-level engagements. Earlier on January 21, 2026, EU's highest-ranking diplomat noted that EU is among India's largest trading partners and described India as indispensable to Europe's economic resilience.
The EU and India are moving closer together at the time when the rules-based international order is under unprecedented pressure through wars, coercion and economic fragmentation. Two major democracies cannot afford to hesitate. We must become more ambitious partners.
She also announced that both India and EU agreed to sign a new security and defense partnership covering maritime security, cyber security and counter-terror.
We aim to conclude negotiations on the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. This deal will open markets, remove barriers and strengthen critical supply chains in clean technologies, pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. Second, today we agreed to move forward with the signature of a new EU-India security and defense partnership in areas like maritime security, cybersecurity and counterterrorism. We will also launch negotiations on a security of information agreement. In a more dangerous world, we will both gain from working closer together. We also intend to conclude a memorandum of understanding on comprehensive framework on cooperation on mobility. This will facilitate movement for seasonal workers, students, researchers and highly skilled professionals while promoting research and innovation.
The free trade agreement between India and the European Union has reached a decisive stage. In the coming days, both sides are expected to sign this deal. This agreement is being described as the mother of all deals. On the one hand, Europe will gain access to a large market like India. On the other, Indian products will find easier access to a major part of the world. Through this report, we explain why this agreement is being called mother of all deals. India and the European Union are very close to concluding a historic free trade agreement. After several years of negotiations between the two sides, this agreement has been finalized. The free trade agreement between India and EU is being described in global diplomacy and business world as the mother of all deals. The reason is not just its size, but also its economic, strategic, and geopolitical significance.
I will travel to India. There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals. One that would create a market of 2 billion people, accounting for almost a quarter of global GDP. And crucially, that would provide a first-mover advantage for Europe, with one of the world's fastest growing and most dynamic continents.
In fact, this deal is being called mother of all deals because after long negotiations, agreement has reached a decisive stage, one of the world's largest and most complex trade agreements. Agreement between two of the world's largest markets. European Union has a population of around 450 million, an economy worth more than $17 trillion. India, on the other hand, has a population of 1.4 billion and is the world's fastest growing major economy. This is not just an FTA, but a package of multiple deals. Along with the FTA, it includes aspects such as investment, digital trade, data protection, and green energy. Reaching the agreement at a decisive stage involved facing several challenges, as Europe is strict on environmental standards, labor laws, and data protection, while India has been very cautious regarding farmers, dairy sector, MSMEs, and policy autonomy. It is important to note that EU is the most regulated market in the world. Therefore, this is not just a trade agreement, but is set to become a new framework for global economy in the 21st century. Bureau Report, DD India. As the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, will soon be arriving in India, Ministry of External Affairs shared some of the highlights of the strategic and multifaceted India-EU relations. Rajasthan, Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwani Vaishnaw, visited the headquarters of ASML in Netherlands on Friday. Speaking during the visit, the minister said India has started a new semiconductor industry and that lithography, which involves printing the circuit on the wafer, is the most complex and precision-intensive process in the entire semiconductor manufacturing chain.
When we started the semiconductor mission on 1st Jan 2022, we had taken a target that within 5 years we should start the commercial production. Very glad to say that the first commercial production will start in 2026 itself. Actually, 4 of the plants will start their commercial production in 2026. The pilot production have started already in 3 plants in 2025 itself. Now the equipment manufacturers are coming to India.
The minister also shared India's strength in AI, which is very consistent across all layers of the stack.
India's strength in AI is very consistent across the 5 layers of the AI stack. Application layer, we will become the leaders. Models are today, our sovereign models are getting developed, which are very good and which have the capability of solving 95% of the problems. The committed investment, which might grow up to $150 billion as we approach the AI Impact Summit, and the final energy layer. All the 5 layers we are working very consistently.
Let's now talk about the Republic Day. The massive ceremony gave way to the face of readiness. As the contingents march down Kartavya Path, several units will not be seen in glossy ceremonial tunics, but in operational combat-ready dress, a visual message of an armed force poised for action.
On 26th January 2026, India's Republic Day parade will emphasize on operational preparedness. For the first time, the armed forces will present a combat-forward posture on Kartavya Path, marching in battle-ready gear alongside mechanized columns and new combat platforms. A major talking point is the ceremonial debut of the newly raised Bhairav Light Commando Battalion, a formation designed to bridge conventional infantry and special forces.
A sole infantry unit bridging the capability of conventional infantry.
Officials say the battalion's appearance is meant to show a blend of ceremony and immediate operational capability.
Special forces provide the high-risk conventional edge. They'll be on various specialist platforms employing autonomous systems. The vital boots on ground element will be showcased in this battle grouping. Along this also is the long-range surveillance and targeting ability of the newly raised drone and loitering munition units to hit targets in depth on actionable intelligence. Indigenous long-range vectors of the artillery are on parade with surface-to-surface indigenous long-range vectors of the RT. Also along with surface-to-surface rocket and strategic missile capabilities.
The Army's phased battle array tanks, infantry combat vehicles, artillery and drones will be displayed in a format that mirrors field formations rather than purely ceremonial columns. The DRDO and other services will also showcase new unmanned systems and combat platforms that underline the combat-ready theme. The shift from purely ceremonial kits to practical combat dress is more than style. It signals doctrinal emphasis on rapid deployability, integrated technology, and hybrid warfare readiness. A sign that the parading units are trained, equipped, and networked for real-world operations.
So this is a special clothing called ECWCS. This is extreme cold weather clothing system, and we are also wearing the RI boots. This whole kit is very useful for us in high altitude areas where the temperature ranges from 15 degrees Celsius to minus 50 degrees Celsius.
Just to enhance the security by looking in the latest affairs all over the world, the pattern has been changed. It's a digitalized pattern that we have now, and its sale is restricted only through authorized sources. It can be procured to enhance the security of the forces and eventually the national security.
While the parade honors tradition with bands, tableaus and veterans, the combat-ready contingents and battle array drive home a single idea. Ceremony and combat capability can be displayed side by side for the public and for veterans as well. Akshay Dongre, DD India, New Delhi.
Let's turn to some weather news now. Residents in Jammu and Kashmir and surrounding North Indian hilly regions are celebrating as the season's first snowfall have finally broken a prolonged, severe dry spell. The famous hill resorts in Jammu and Kashmir's Bhadarwah and Gando areas of Doda district experienced the snowfall, thereby not only ending a long dry or drought season, but also bringing cheers to all dependent on the tourism industry. The snowfall transformed Bhadarwah's roads and streets into a white blanket, adding to the charm of the town. People in Lado, Rajpura and Dare areas of Kando subdivision were seen rejoicing the heavy snow after a long time, said the dry season had ended and acute water scarcity which they were facing will finally end. Himachal Pradesh is reeling under severe weather conditions as continuous rains and snowfall disrupt normal life across the state. Landslide and heavy snow accumulation have led to closure of over 560 roads, including 2 national highways, severely affecting connectivity. Power supply has also been badly hit, with over 4,700 electricity transformers reported out of service, leaving many areas without power. Restoration work and road clearing operations are being carried out on a war footing, but continuous rains and snowfall are hampering efforts. The Met Department has forecast light rains with gusty winds at isolated places in Chamba, Kinnaur, Lahaul-Spiti districts, as well as in the higher reaches of Kullu, Kangra. No significant weather activity is expected in the remaining districts. Authorities have advised residents and travellers to remain cautious, avoid unnecessary travel in vulnerable areas, and follow official advisories until conditions improve. A major winter storm, meanwhile, is moving east across the United States, triggering emergency alerts and preparations from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. Heavy snow began falling in parts of Texas and Oklahoma as powerful Arctic storms spread across the country. The U.S. National Weather Service said over 150 million Americans are under weather emergency alerts. At least 14 U.S. states and Washington, D.C. have declared a state of emergency, with authorities preparing for icy roads, power outages, and extreme cold. Forecasters warn the storm could bring up to 36 centimeters of snow in parts of Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic, while Washington, D.C., New York, and Boston may receive about 4 to 8 inches of snow by Sunday. And we're heading for a short break. There's more coming up.
Every time I open my wardrobe, I wonder, how many of these clothes do I actually need? So today, let's step into a world where our fashion does not have to come at the cost of the environment.
We make sure that we don't waste a single piece of clothing. We use up all the scraps as well, gathering them into balls and making different products with them.
Consumers think that if they don't buy it now, they're going to regret it tomorrow.
Instead of having a linear thing where you produce something that never degrades and then you just end up having it in the landfill, you biosource it, you use it, and then it biodegrades and gets back to nature.
We use natural dyes for the garments. We extract the dye the way our ancestors did by using natural products with some modifications.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In an effort to break the impasse, Russian, Ukrainian and US negotiators held talks in United Arab Emirates, the first meeting attended by all 3 countries in 4 years. Officials met in Abu Dhabi to tackle the vital issue of territory with no sign of a compromise as Russian airstrikes plunged Ukraine into its worst energy crisis of the nearly 4-year conflict. The tripartite talks brokered by the US are unfolding against a backdrop of intensified Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy system that have cut power and heating to major cities such as Kiev as temperatures dip well below freezing. The head of Ukraine's top private power producer on Friday said the situation was nearing a humanitarian catastrophe and that Ukraine needs a ceasefire that halts attacks on energy infrastructure. However, the key sticking point in the trilateral meeting remains territorial issues, including Russia's demand that Ukraine gives up 20% of the Donetsk region, which Kiev still controls. While President Zelensky refused to give up land that Russia has not been able to capture in 4 years of grinding attritional warfare, polls show little appetite among Ukrainians for territorial concessions. Donetsk is one of the 4 Ukrainian regions Moscow said in 2022 that it was annexing after referendums rejected by Kiev and Western nations as bogus. Most countries recognize Donetsk as part of Ukraine. In other news, United States on Friday imposed a new series of sanctions targeting Iran's shadow fleet, said to be supporting the country's oil exports as Washington steps up pressure over the government's crackdown on protesters. In a statement, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the officials directly tied the sanctions on 9 vessels and their respective owners or management firms. The department said the fleet collectively transported hundreds of millions of dollars worth Iranian oil and petroleum products to foreign markets. The Treasury said revenue belongs to the Iranian people, but instead is diverted to fund Iran's regional terrorist proxies, weapons programs, security services instead of basic economic services the Iranian people have bravely demanded. The United Nations Human Rights Council on Friday passed a motion extending an independent probe into human rights abuses in Iran and called for an urgent inquiry into the violent crackdown by authorities on protesters. Bangladesh Nationalist Party Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul on Friday described Jamaat-e-Islami as threat to Bangladesh's national security, citing the party's opposition to the 1971 Liberation War. Speaking at an election street rally in Thakurgaon, Fakhrul said the country could not be safe in the hands of forces that did not want the birth of Bangladesh. Contesting from Thakurgaon 1 constituency, the BNP leader said his party remains a proven political force committed to the spirit of independence and has worked extensively for national development. Let's now turn to sports. The first leg of Khelo India Winter Games is nearing conclusion in Leh. On day 5, host Ladakh, Army and ITBP will be in action in the men's semi-finals of ice hockey, while short track events in various categories of ice skating will continue at the NDS Stadium. Earlier on Friday, host Ladakh and ITBP qualified for the final of the women's ice hockey competition. On an icy day in Leh, 1,000-meter long track finals for both men and women at Kopuk Pond were affected due to heavy snow, first in several weeks in the Union Territory. Due to poor visibility, the condition of the 333-meter course, the women's final was disrupted midway, while the men's race had to be postponed. Snowfall is expected to continue in the coming days as temperatures hover between -10 and -12 degrees Celsius. India's national anthem, Jana Gana Mana, and national song, Vande Mataram, are more than musical compositions. They are symbols of nation's freedom struggle, unity and identity. As India marks 150 years of Vande Mataram, its legacy continues to inspire generations with patriotism and cultural pride. Here's how.
The national anthem Jan Gan Man and the national song Vande Mataram are not merely songs, but the very soul of India's freedom movement, which fills the hearts of millions of Indians with the spirit of patriotism. Their verses echoed in every movement, rally and revolutionary struggle during British rule. That is why, after independence, while drafting the constitution, India accorded Jan Gan Man the status of the national anthem and Vande Mataram that of the national song, recognizing them as national symbols. It was on January 24, 1950, India formally accorded the national status to Jan Gan Man and Vande Mataram. While Jan Gan Man symbolizes India's unity and sovereignty, Vande Mataram symbolizes devotion and reverence to the motherland. Both India's national anthem and national song are enduring symbols of Indian culture, unity and the freedom struggle. Both compositions reflect the nation's proud history and national identity. Jan Gan Man was written and composed by Rabindranath Tagore, originally written in the Bengali language, and was adopted as India's national anthem by the Constituent Assembly. Through this composition, Tagore deeply expressed the diversity, unity and sovereignty of Indian society. The national song Vande Mataram was composed by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. The song was taken from his novel Anandmat and was first published on 7th November 1875 in the literary magazine Doordarshan. Vande Mataram recently completed 150 years since its creation. To mark the national song's milestone, the government is organizing year-long programs and activities across India, including exhibitions, musical performances, seminars and cultural events. The rich legacy of the national anthem and national song, their cultural diversity and their immense contribution to India's freedom struggle remains eternal. Bureau Report, DD India.
And with that, we conclude this edition of DD India Live. Namaskar.